Hey everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Dribble, the show where we take a closer look into the Boston Celtics, the rest of the NBA, and whatever else might come up. My name is Luke Irwin, and I am your host. Today, we have a great show. We're going to talk Celtics, Cavs. We're going to talk about the NBA Cup as it stands. We're also going to dive into MVP. And then we're going to talk about the story around the NBA, the Philadelphia 76ers, and their team meeting. Plus, we're going to look ahead for the schedule of the Celtics, along with some key games to look forward to in the association. So, yeah, so much to get into. And personally, I suggest we do. Because this is The Dribble. I didn't like that little look to the camera. This is The Dribble. Just...
Celtics are NBA champions.
So, the Cleveland Cavaliers are undefeated no more. The Boston Celtics end their undefeated streak, winning last night on Tuesday night, 120 to 117. This was also a group stage of the NBA Cup game. This was the second game for the Boston Celtics. We lost our first one against the Atlanta Hawks, who right now are atop Group C in the East with a 2-0 record, and the Cavaliers were 1-0, and they would have gone to 2-0, and it basically would have just completely taken the Celtics out of contention for the NBA Cup, but they get the big win against the East-leading Cavaliers. They go 1-1 on the NBA Cup schedule, and they look to Friday to play against the Wizards. So it's a big game for the Celtics. Obviously, that brings us, the Celtics, to 12-3. They're 5-2 at home. And the Cavs fall to 15-1. Oh, boo-hoo for the Cavs. And hold still a 2.5 game lead over the Boston Celtics for the number one seed in the East. Yeah, I mean, this, like I said, it was a big game. One of the most highly anticipated games of the season. It felt like kind of the first game that had some consequence and had some stakes and actually felt like a real regular season game. Obviously, the Celtics played against the Warriors, and that was a big narrative game. You have Steve Kerr benching Jason Tatum, 2 DNPs in the Olympics. We've talked about that enough. And then Jaylen Brown, obviously, also not even selected towards the Olympic team. So it was kind of like a rivalry game. Celtics lose that game. But that was kind of outside narrative pump up and hype. This was more about actual who is the best team in the East. Can the Cavs play against a team like the Celtics? Because the Cavs have played some lesser competition, and of the competition that they have played well against, or that they've won games against, has not been fully healthy. So a lot of questions surrounding the Cavs, and last night the Celtics put an end to that undefeated streak and stamp their flag as the best team in the Eastern Conference, because that is what it is. We all know it, even though right now atop ESPN's power rankings, the Cavaliers are atop the league. That'll probably change now that they've lost to the Celtics, but the Celtics are the best team in the East, and they are probably the best team in the entire NBA. And of course, we've lost games to the Hawks. We've lost games to the Warriors. We lost a game to the Pacers when they weren't playing well, but that happens. OKC last night just lost to the Spurs without Victor Wembanyama. And they were basically down 15 points the entire game. They ended up cutting it to about, 4 or 5 at the end. But the Spurs pulled ahead with some clutch play from Chris Paul, and the Spurs won. Does that make the Oklahoma City Thunder a bad team? No. We still know that they're a top 3 team in the league. Just like how the Celtics lose a couple games, we're still the top team in the league. So let's look at last night's game. Just go through some stats real quick, just to recap. So if we go to player stats, for the Cleveland Cavaliers, Donovan Mitchell was on fire. He had a really bad first half, but in the second half, he just absolutely came out firing. He ended the game with 35 points. He had 3 assists and he had 8 rebounds. The Evan Mobley continued just growth and play. He's so good. Him and Jared Allen play so well together. He had 22 points, 6 assists, and 11 rebounds. And then Jared Allen had 10 points, 11 rebounds, and 2 assists in that as well. Big contributions from Georges Niang in this game. One of the contributions was that Jason Tatum absolutely crossed him and sent him flying across the floor for a buzzer-beating 3 at the end of the third quarter from Jason Tatum there. But Georges Niang gave them 11 points, 3 assists, 4 rebounds, and some heavy minutes. He had 30 minutes off of the bench for them. The Cavs decided to go a little bit small, even though they played in the paint still, because that's one of their strengths. They're one of the best paint scoring offenses in the league, and they're really good from three, but they had a pretty bad 3-point shooting night last night. But they played a little bit small down the stretch. Jared Allen did not play in the final little clutch moment of this. The final 4 minutes or so, they just did not go Jared Allen. They went with Georges Niang, and they just ended up not trying to go size for the Celtics, and they tried to match shooting, spacing of the Celtics pace, and the shooting of 3-pointers to try to just keep up with the barrage that the Celtics were throwing down. Speaking of the Celtics, obviously top performer last night was Jason Tatum. He is on a tear this season. 33 points, 12 rebounds, 7 assists, 2 steals, 6 for 10 3-point shooting in this game. 60% 3-point shooting. He was 11 from 22 from the floor, 50% from the floor, 60% from 3. Got to the line 7 times, played almost 40 minutes. Both teams, a little side note here, both teams played an 8-man rotation and did not play outside of that, which, if you're familiar, playoff basketball typically shortens a rotation, and you typically play about an 8-man rotation. So both teams took this game where they've been playing 10-man rotations, basically, maybe even 11 sometimes, throughout this season. Both teams took the approach of playoff rotation and went to an 8-man rotation. The Celtics off the bench had Sam Hauser, Neemias Queta, who he has been an all-star. He is the next Robert Williams. We will get into him, and Peyton Pritchard, obviously. Fast PP. He is the leading candidate for 6th man of the year. And then off the bench for the Cavs was Niang, Ty Jerome, who's been a big surprise for them. He shoots the ball really well. He generates a lot of offense in a short period of time for the Cavaliers. And Craig Porter Jr., which he played great defensively. They needed him defensively. He hit a couple big shots early to kind of weather the Celtics storm. But when it comes down to it, he's a good defender, and he supplied some good defense when, the Cavaliers were without some of their key defenders in Isaac Okoro, who's also a 3-point shooter, and they had Karis LeVert out as well. Plus, Dean Wade was also out. So they were missing some pieces. Celtics were missing Porzingis, but both teams played an 8-man rotation, which I thought was interesting. It shows how much both teams cared about this game and how much they knew that this was a big game, not only an NBA Cup game, but again, a way and a chance for the Celtics or the Cavs to plant their flag as the kings of the Eastern Conference. It just happens to be that the Celtics still are the kings of the Eastern Conference, but the Cavs are legit. Let's go over some of the team stats from this game, which were a little bit telling kind of how the game went. One stat that stood out to me as a Celtics fan and as somebody who wants to see the Celtics do this more often, the Celtics had 32 assists on 44 made field goals. 32 assists on 44 made field goals. That is 73% of their total made shots, they were assisted. 73% of their total shots taken and made were assisted shots. That's huge. That's an incredible rate. That's great basketball. Celtics made 22 of 41 3-point attempts, which is 53%. Obviously, we know when the Celtics are hitting at a high rate, it's basically impossible to beat them. So it's a great night from deep. But the assist stat shows that this isn't just a throw it up and pray, which a lot of people say, the Celtics just huck up threes, and when they're shooting well, they win. But what happens when you start missing those threes? Well, they don't just throw up threes and just try to get a high volume of threes, even though they do lead the league with 50 3-point attempts per game. The next closest has 44 attempts per game. So they lead the league in 3-point attempts by 6. They also obviously lead the league in 3-point makes because of that. But they basically, this is what they do. They don't play throw it up basketball. They don't play just throw it in the air, hope that it goes in. Oh, we're shooting well tonight. That means that we're going to win. Oh, we're shooting bad. Whatever, we'll lose. They just have great ball movement. They get the open shot. They make the better pass at the end of a play. They drive the kick. We know they drive the kick. They drive their kick. They get the defense in rotation, but it's about the players that are driving and kicking. In concept, you can say, drive and kick all day you want, but Jason Tatum has to be the one driving the ball. Jaylen Brown has to be the one driving the ball. Derek White has to be the one driving the ball. Drew Holiday's driving the ball. Peyton Pritchard driving the ball. All threats to score at the rim. All threats to score in the mid-range too. So it's not like you need the talent that this team has in order to execute this properly. Because not only can at any given point, 3 to 5 players on the court drive to the basket, but all of them can shoot as well, including a lot of the big men. So just like an incredible display of what the Celtics do and why they're really hard to beat. They're just one of those teams where you can, like I said, you can preach drive and kick basketball all you want. But unless you have the talent of a Jason Tatum and a Jaylen Brown and a Derek White, which Jaylen Brown did not have a good game this game. Jaylen Brown had, Jaylen Brown in this game scored 17 points. He was good, really good late in the clutch, which obviously we know Jaylen Brown is clutch. He was good late in the clutch. He had 8 assists, and he had only 3 rebounds in this game, but he was a plus 17. He just played great defense down the stretch. But even when a guy like Jaylen Brown, your second best player, doesn't have it going, well, Jason Tatum has 33. 33, 12, and 7 from Jason Tatum, like I said. Al Horford has 20 points. Drew Holiday chips in 11. Derek White has 19. All big shots. But this team just drives and kicks, and they have the talent to drive, so they're a threat. If you drive and you're not a threat, you're not going to suck much defense into the middle. You're not going to bring attention to you. You see when Jason Tatum drives, the reason it works is because, and we'll do some film later, a film breakdown of this game, but you can see 4 heads turn to Tatum. Everybody looks to see Tatum, what he's going to do. Okay, 4 heads go to Tatum. He dishes it out to an open man. 1 more skip pass, and it goes. So, yeah, just a great display of what the Celtics do in their attack. Rebounds in this game were basically even. Celtics won more. They had 41 to 42 rebounds in this. Tatum had 12 rebounds, like I said, so big thanks there to Jason Tatum. The Cavs are a great rebounding team. They're a big team. They're a physical team. They're a great offensive rebounding team. And that was a big part for the Celtics to try to control or at least corral in this game. And they did. They rebounded them only by 1, but at least they were able to kind of even the score in that world, which was a emphasis for this game. Points in the paint, however, go the opposite way. The Cleveland Cavaliers crushed the Celtics in points in paint, 60 to 36. Cleveland Cavaliers, 60 points in the paint. Celtics 36. Look, Celtics are really good at defending the 3 and really good at shooting the 3. And in 2024, that is basketball that will work. That is the type of basketball that will absolutely work. However, they're not so good at guarding the paint, especially with Kristaps Porzingis out. He's injured. They're not as good guarding the paint. You got Neemias Queta out there, who's long and he can block shots, but he gets thrown off easily by rotations. If he has to rotate out and then rotate to a skip pass and then recover all the way down to the paint, he gets caught out of rhythm. He fouls a little bit. We're just not very good guarding the paint. Al Horford, a little bit older, can't quite get up there, even though he had a couple great blocks. One really great block on Darius Garland, which we'll get into Darius Garland in a moment here. But the Celtics mid-transition defense was really on fire in this game. Celtics had 13 turnovers, but the Cavs only had 7. But in that, even though they had 6 more turnovers than the Cavaliers, the Celtics had a 20-8 advantage in points off turnovers. So the Celtics turned it over 13 times, but the Cavs only scored 8 points off of those turnovers. So really good job of getting back, recovering off of a turnover, and responding well to a bad play on the offensive end. And then the Celtics, on the other hand, only caused 7 turnovers from the Cleveland Cavaliers, which they're one of the lowest turnover rate teams in the entire league, but they got 20 points off of the Cavaliers. The Celtics capitalized on every single turnover. They scored a basket at the other end of the floor after causing a turnover from the Cavs. Every single turnover from the Cavs resulted in a basket or points for the Boston Celtics on the other side of the floor. The Cavs only had 4 of the 13 turnovers were positive plays on the other end. So out of the 13 turnovers the Celtics had, the Cavs only had 4 of them go their way. So the Celtics can just turn it on. They just turn it on. And they turn it on in this game. Oh, bad turnover. Okay, intense defense. Don't let them score. Great. We erased that mistake. Right? We turn it on because we're told that the Cavaliers are the best team in the East, and we've been slipping a little bit, and we're like number 4 in the ESPN power rankings, and they say that the Cavaliers are going to be the number 1 seed and that they're better than us. Okay, turn it on. We go up by 20, 16, whatever it was in the first half. Okay, yeah, see, that's what we can do. Cavs come back, cut it to 2, and every single time they cut it to 2, we ballooned it to 7. They would cut it to 2. We'd go, okay, fine, we got to turn it on. We'd balloon it to 7. And same thing with the turnovers. We get a bad turnover. Okay, fine. Turn it on. Let's play great defense and not let this mistake hurt us on the other end of the floor. And that's how it's going to be. There's going to be moments in this season where the Celtics they're going to feel like they're asleep. They're going to feel like they didn't show up for a game, right? They're going to be in Detroit for a game and it's going to feel like they don't care. And they might lose a game against Detroit. They lost a game against the Pacers. They didn't look engaged against the Warriors. It's going to happen throughout the entire season because they're that kind of a team that can turn it on. Whether it's in-game, within play-by-play, or throughout the season, week to week, game to game. And that's encouraging because when this team wants to play, they turn it on and they play. So I also wanted to talk about Garland in this game. Darius Garland in this game did not shoot well. He was 3 for 21 after a great start to the season. He went 0 for 6 from 3. 3 for 21 is 14% from the field. That's really bad, and Darius Garland is an amazing scorer. He's a huge part of kind of what drives the Cavs' offensive engine. And he goes 3 for 21 from the floor, 0 for 6 from deep. Not a good showing, and a lot of people are like, well, look, if Darius Garland even has a mediocre game, Cavs would probably beat the Celtics. Well, Jaylen Brown did not have a great game. But also let's look at years past, right? Because you can ask, okay, is this just a bad shooting night? Or does this Celtics team bother the Cavs team? Darius Garland in last year's playoffs against the Celtics, his points per game, rebounds per game, assists per game, and field goal percentage were all down from the regular season. Field goal percentage alone, he shot 39% from the floor in that series. 39% in 5 games. 30% from 3. 49% true shooting. That's really bad. 39% from the floor, like I said, 30% from three-point range. That's all of those are 5 percentage points at least below his regular season average last year. So against this Celtics team, the tough physical perimeter players of Derek White and Drew Holiday, and the wing length and switchability of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown, and even Al Horford, clearly throw him off. I think the physicality, getting him off his spot, he seemed to get some open jumpers last night that he usually makes. But again, Derek White got a big block on him. Al Horford got a big block on him. That can kind of shake your confidence and make your shot a little bit off because you know that Derek White can even block jump shots. So even though he had a bad game, and it's certainly not indicative of what is to come, 3 for 21 is not going to be how he plays next time that the Cavaliers face off against Celtics, which is soon. But we have enough evidence to see that his points per game are down from the regular season after playing us in the playoffs. His assists per game, rebounds per game, field goal percentage, three-point percentage, true shooting percent, everything goes down. And his turnovers go up against the Celtics when he plays them. So it's a little bit of both, right? Bad shooting night, but also we clearly have the type of defense that gets under his skin. So yeah, the takeaways from this are the Cavs are legit. No Karis LeVert, no Isaac Okoro, no Dean Wade. Those aren't game-breaking players. They're not the best players in the league, but still, they're great players. Not great. They're really good players. And especially within the Cavs system, they are players that make this engine run. And of course, defensively, Celtics had their way with the Cavs. And those are 3 players, including Max Strus, who they've been without for the start of the season, is another pretty good switching defender. So they were without some defense. Celtics without Porzingis. So hopefully we see a fully healthy squad in the playoffs with the Cavs and the Celtics going up against each other. But yeah, Celtics took advantage and just... and we'll break everything down. Like I said, I'm going to do some film for that. I want to talk about the MVP. Look, obviously, Jokic is probably the number one, depending on where the Nuggets record goes and how many games Jokic misses potentially this season. That could be a factor, but right now he's probably the number one. Real quick, I saw the stat about his stats this year that is just ridiculous. Apparently, currently, he is averaging more points than Shaq's highest points per game average ever. He's averaging more rebounds than Tim Duncan's highest rebounds per game ever. And he's averaging more assists than Steve Nash's highest assist per game average in his career. He's averaging, that's like taking one of the best scoring big men in Shaq, one of the best rebounding big men in Tim Duncan, and the best, arguably, one of the best passing point guards in Steve Nash, and combining that into one player, sending him to Serbia to grow up with horses, and then shipping him back to America to dominate the NBA. And that's exactly what he has done. But second on my MVP ladder and on MVP voting currently, MVP odds, is Jason Tatum. 30 points, 8 rebounds, and 6 assists on some really great shooting. 64% true shooting. And we've talked about, his three-point shooting has improved. His field goal shooting has definitely improved. And his clutch shooting is incredible this year. The past 5 games, it felt like he's had a clutch shot. He had a clutch shot against the Bucks. He obviously hit the game winner against the Raptors. He had clutch buckets last night. He had the clutch bucket to send it into overtime against the Pacers. It just feels like he had a clutch bucket against the Pistons. I mean, we're literally 15 games into the season, and it feels like he has 10 clutch shots already in the 15 games. So he's just been winning a lot for the Celtics. But the biggest reason why I think he should be MVP is because, look, he's second in the entire league in win shares behind SGA, which we all know SGA is the engine that runs that Oklahoma City Thunder team. He's second in the league in win shares, and he's top 5 in usage rate. And he leads them both for the team and leads the team by 7 percentage points in PER, which is player efficiency rating. So with that win shares and usage load on his shoulders, and with the PER efficiency, he leads the team in points, rebounds, assists, and steals, all while being top 10 in the NBA in PER. So what does this mean? What does that mean? It basically means that even though the Celtics are this juggernaut, right, this impossibly skilled, weapons all over the place, pieces that can kill you any given night, Tatum haters love to mention how he gets carried by all the good players. Well, just like in the playoffs, where Jason Tatum led the team in points, rebounds, and assists, this season, Jason Tatum is leading this juggernaut best team ever with all these pieces in points, rebounds, assists, and steals. If you're a great player on a shitty team, it is easy. Not easy. Not easy. You have to be a special player. But you can lead a team in all those categories. But to do it on a team like this, with that level of efficiency and that just absolute dominance, and I already mentioned the clutch play, that's special. That's beyond special. That's different. Jordan Poole can lead points per game in Washington, but he goes to a team like the Celtics, you know what I mean? And he's leading this team in all these categories. He's a great two-way player in Jaylen Brown. Tatum does more, and he does more often. Jrue Holiday and Derek White anchor the defense. Tatum still leads the team in steals. Playmakers and shooters up and down the roster. Tatum still leads in assists and points. 2 7-foot centers in Cornette and Queta that get heavy minutes, and Tatum still leads this team in rebounding. That is special. I don't care what you think about how he is off the court, not loud enough. That's incredible on this good of a team to do everything better than every other player on the team. Yeah, but they have Jrue Holiday and Derek White for the defense. Well, he's one of their better defenders. He switches from 1 to 5. He can guard point guard, he can guard the center, but he leads the team in steals by 0.4, by 0.5, basically half steal a game. It's just like the ultimate clear best player to do this on this team. And for that, Jason Tatum is currently my NBA MVP. And look, I'm just going to reiterate one more time. It's just a lot. It's one thing to average the most points, rebounds, and assists and steals on your team. But it's another thing to do it on what people are calling one of the best teams in history, the juggernaut of the NBA right now. To do it on that team. Shouldn't Jrue Holiday be leading in steals? Shouldn't Derek White be leading in steals? No, Jason Tatum does by half a steal. Shouldn't Jaylen Brown get some of these win shares? What I hear is that he's constantly the reason they win a lot of games. Well, no, Jason Tatum leads in win shares too. How about PER? He's not that efficient. Tatum's like Kobe. He likes to shoot a lot of shots. No. He's actually leads the team by 10 points in PER. Yeah. Okay, but, well, I mean, a lot of playmakers, and they like to move the ball. So obviously he doesn't lead the league in assists, right? No, he does lead the team in assists. He leads them in every category. He did it throughout the playoffs. It's nothing new. It's not a fluke. He did it throughout the playoffs. Didn't win Finals MVP or Eastern Conference Finals MVP because Jaylen Brown deserved them both. But you're fooling yourself if you don't understand the insane, historical, legendary level of impact he has on a historical, legendary team with this much talent. That's really hard to do. To step into the gym every day with this many talented guys and walk out as the most productive, efficient, and best of all of them each and every night. That's it. That is next level Jason Tatum. You beautiful, beautiful man. Okay, now I want to talk about the Philadelphia 76ers. My God, they currently have the worst record in the league. Yes, you heard that. The team that just acquired Paul George has Tyrese Maxey, one of my favorite young guards, favorite young players in the league, and the so-called amazing all-time Joel Embiid. Three-headed monster with Kelly Oubre on the team, Kyle Lowry on the team. Some good pieces. Supposed to be good pieces. They are 2-11. I understand, obviously, injuries. They've been in and out, suspension from Joel Embiid, but they've all been kind of self-inflicted. What's up with Joel Embiid? He plays in the Olympics, and then we get no report of any injury, and he just decides to not play. He comes out earlier when he was 100% healthy saying, I just am never going to play a back-to-back game again in my career. Already just like plotting out that he just doesn't really want to work hard, doesn't really want to play for the city of Philadelphia. I feel so bad. I never thought I'd say this. I feel bad for the city of Philadelphia. But they're 2-11, like I said. They lose to the Heat on Monday night to 106-89. And after the game, the Philadelphia 76ers have a team meeting, which that is never good this early in the season. It can turn things around, but I don't know. But like I said, they lose to the Heat with Embiid and Paul George on the floor, by the way, but they still lose to the Heat. They get washed by the Heat by 17 points. And they play the Grizzlies on Wednesday night, which is tonight when I'm filming this. But they have a meeting, team meeting, and people just air out all their grievances. Nick Nurse was an hour late to the press conference. An hour. Usually it takes like 15 minutes. I think it was like an hour and a half or something. He was late to the press conference because they were having an hour-long players meeting. It usually takes like 15 minutes for players and coaches to get to the stand. But they had an hour-long, just like air out all your grievances meeting. Player meeting, coaches, staff, like every single person in that organization that has to do with game-to-game, winning games or losing games was in this meeting. And they just aired out grievances, which is good. It's good to get that off of your chest. But some of the grievances have come out, have leaked, and they're not so good. Right? It was mainly about accountability and work ethic, which we know Marcus Hayes, the reporter that Embiid pushed to get the 3-game suspension earlier this season. What he wrote in the article, yes, what gets all the play is that he had mentioned, very wrongfully so, you do not do this, mentioned a family member who had passed away of Joel Embiid's. And so, of course, you get why Embiid was so upset. But the content, really the meat of the article, was mainly about Embiid's lack of commitment and lack of awareness and lack of try and lack of being there. He mentioned in the article that Joel Embiid was late to like team functions. And one of the grievances that got aired in this meeting was from Tyrese Maxey, the young face of this franchise, currently, in my opinion, the best player on the team. He aired a grievance with Embiid about this isn't the direct quote, but this is what he said, generally, that Embiid is late to everything. That was the word used, late to everything. Team activities, practices, games, whatever it might be. Team dinners, whatever it might be, he's late to reportedly everything. And Tyrese Maxey described how this sets a bad precedent for the other players on the team. A young guy like Jared McCain, who is playing amazing, Rookie of the Year top candidate right now. It sets a bad precedent for what he needs to do to be successful, not only on the Sixers this year, but in the league in years to come. It's just unbecoming. It's not good leadership. We know that he already is lying about injuries. He's injured. He's not playing through things. He forecasting games he's going to miss, pushing reporters. He cried his way to an MVP, I think. Oh, I deserve an MVP. He just is a crybaby. And he doesn't like accountability. Every time he loses, even he goes on TNT post-game, and this is when he had that wink to Paul George, and Paul George ended up coming to the Sixers, going to the Sixers. And in that he said, oh, if I ever went, 7 for 20 in a playoff game, we would never win. Well, you've gone 7 for 20 in a playoff game plenty of times, or worse, 7 for 25. But he was throwing shade at Tatum. And then he threw shade at Tatum at a different podcast because he, again, like I said, everybody thinks that Tatum gets carried by such a good team, even though Tatum is the best player in every category on the Celtics. And he just cries, oh, I never have help. I never have this. I never have that. And he just never gets it done. Never been out of the second round. But here he is again, already before the season started, not playing back-to-backs, not doing this, not going to... And then we have this injury that wasn't reported and was reported. And then he shoves a reporter for calling him lazy. And then all this stuff happens. And then we get it from the word of mouth from the franchise player, Tyrese Maxey, heir to grievance, that he is not available. He doesn't take things seriously. And he is late to everything. That is an indictment on Joel Embiid. That's embarrassing. And it's correct. I don't know if it's correct that he is late to everything. I'm assuming it is. I mean, Maxey is not somebody to be outspoken like that. And Tyrese Maxey has a great relationship with Joel Embiid. So I just don't see it being something that's a lie. But it is true that your actions have everything to do with how the other team performs and how they do things. It's expectations that you set. We've talked about this before on this podcast, but in order to win an NBA championship, it needs to start from day one of practice, day one of camp. You need to establish, the best player especially, Tatum's definitely done this and Brown has done this on the Celtics, but you need to establish the culture early. That it came out earlier this year. Jason Tatum, fresh off of winning a championship, winning a gold medal, Al Horford said he would go into the gym at like 8 o'clock in the morning, and Tatum would be finishing his first round of workouts. 8 in the morning, Al Horford shows up, and Jason Tatum's drenched in sweat, been there probably since 6 o'clock, and that's his first workout. And he comes back later to the facility to work on his jump shot, to work on his play. Even though he is so good and just won a championship, he's still hungry. But what that does is that makes Al go, wow, I got to really get in the gym and work. Peyton Pritchard sees it, goes, yeah, you know what? I got to get in the gym and work. Everybody sees it. It sets a precedent. It sets an expectation. It's leadership. It's leading without talking. It's leading with action. Tom Brady used to do that. He was the earliest in the building. Joel Embiid apparently late to everything. Doesn't really care. Not playing back-to-backs. And this team is 2-11. Obviously, the caveat is that the East is really bad. And so even if they have this terrible stretch, there's a chance that they could still make it into the play-in. But still, just look. You can probably tell. I don't like Joel Embiid. I don't like the way he plays. He's a foul merchant. He flops around, then he wonders why he's hurt. Well, maybe you're hurt, Joel Embiid, because you flop around on the floor all the time. Anytime you get touched, you flail and fly back and land weird and try to push weird. And then you get mad and you hurt other players. You hit them in the face. You tangle them up. You grab their legs when you're on the ground. So maybe you're getting hurt because you're putting yourself in non-basketball situations. You put yourself in basketball situations, you're not going to get as hurt as often. But you flail around, you play this just foul merchant basketball, this is going to happen. And then you cry that it's not your fault. Tyrese Maxey then exposes you and says you show up late to everything. And we're supposed to go, yeah, this guy's an all-time great. This guy is like Hakeem. This guy is like Shaq. This guy is like Tim Duncan. No. You want to be one of the best players in the league? Currently, definitely for NBA history, you have to start acting like it and take it seriously. That's why Jimmy Butler hasn't won a championship. That's why Jimmy Butler hasn't won an MVP. That's why Jimmy Butler's legacy won't be as good as it could be because he doesn't take the regular season seriously. And I said this in the last pod, but even if Joel Embiid gets to this end and he's, whoa, I'm 100% healthy, and it's starting the playoffs, there's going to be no chemistry with that team. The minutes that you're already putting on guys like Lowry, who's 38 years old, and Oubre and all these guys, you're putting heavy minutes on these guys. Through 82 games, then you get to the playoffs, you really think you're making it all the way through 4 7-game series? Get real, man. That's not happening. Get real. It's ridiculous. Anyway, that's my soapbox about the Sixers because I love Tyrese Maxey, and I wish that this team would get, I want to see him in the playoffs. I wish that this team would get their shit together. Sorry for the language, but I do. Okay, real quick, I just want to hone in on the Celtics schedule coming up because they have a much tougher schedule. They've had a pretty, not easy, but actually, you know what? Yeah, wicked easy schedule so far. They've played a couple tough teams. They've had some big wins, but moving forward, they have some tough games. Over the next little stretch here, but month-long stretch, they have Minnesota on Sunday. It's gonna be a great game. Anthony Edwards coming to the Garden. That should be a fantastic game. I'm gonna try to grab tickets for that. So Minnesota comes to town. Then LA Clippers come to town. Even though they're not that great record-wise, they're out in the West. West is tougher. They're a tough team. They're a tough team. And then we have Cleveland again. Miami's a pretty tough team. I think Milwaukee is getting their stuff on. They're starting to come back to their form a little bit so far. Detroit, sneakily, 4th team in the East. They're not a bad team anymore. 4th team. So there's something, that's a game that could be something. Memphis, Josh should be back for that game. To Chicago, and then Orlando, and also Paolo Banchero should be back for that game too. Then 76ers, 2 in Indiana, Minnesota again, and then the stretch gets tough. We have Minnesota, Houston, Oklahoma City, Denver, Sacramento. Woo! That is tough. That is tough. But yeah, a couple of good games coming up for the Celtics. So we're going to get some good tests here. Again, like I said, we see Cleveland again December 1st rematch. That's in Cleveland. That should be great. Game to look forward to, though, in the near future is that Minnesota Timberwolves game. Anthony Edwards versus Jason Tatum. That is marquee matchup stuff. That's at 3:30 on this coming Sunday. Okay, so that's everything I wanted to talk about. Hope you enjoyed. I ranted a bunch. I screamed a bunch. Sorry that I got so mad. Okay, but there's a lot to be mad about, and there's a lot to be glad about. Okay, balance. That's what it's all about. Here at the Dribble, we believe in balance. All right, well, till next week. Like I said, I am going to be posting a video doing a film breakdown of the Cleveland Cavaliers game against the Celtics, just to kind of look at how the Celtics position themselves to make a statement in that game. But for now, this has been the Dribble.